Everybody, thanks for watching. Thanks for taking the time to purchase and support. If you're watching on Merkabah Academy, thanks for being a member. And this video that, of course, a lot of people have been wanting to really get into the insight, the real knowledge on, the truth about crystals. We see this everywhere. This is something that a lot of you who have spiritual family members have seen. The collection of crystals and rocks and amethysts, what have you, is something that we've seen from people, centuries, for a long time. A lot of you have a lot of amethysts, a lot of crystals and rocks in your homes. I have a lot as well. And a lot of people want to know what is the truth about them, what crystals to buy, what rocks to purchase. What is the whole purpose of that? Is there any real validity to what people say about crystals? Do they have any healing powers? Do they do anything? What is the science behind them? What is it? A lot of people just really get into crystals for how they look. A lot of people read a lot of books and do a lot of research on crystals to try to really understand the purpose for them, how to activate the chakras using the crystals, and what crystals are the best to use, where to get them from, so on and so forth. But it's a big misconception about crystals, and a lot of people are not going to really understand the true use for them. And it's almost in the same realm as they put them in that same category, but marijuana, as I said before, a lot of people use marijuana and they waste it. Marijuana use really is for the purpose of meditation, plain and simple. It's to get you to that place. It's what you're supposed to use it for. So you're wasting an altered state of consciousness to help you really develop spiritually if you're just sitting around getting high. You're just smoking weed for recreational use. You're feeling you're feeling that yoke. You're feeling that energy breach. You're feeling that, that altered state of consciousness. For what? For nothing. You're not absorbing anything. You're not putting out any type of, energy, or, trying to connect consciously with anything to bring any, use, to the marijuana. So if you're smoking weed, you want to use it for meditative purposes to really get you into that altered state. And if you can maintain and control meditation within that state, you can have real benefits with marijuana. And this is what the ancients used it for, Indians as well. So crystals is basically the same. We're going to get to at the end of the video how to properly use them. But first, of course, there's understanding that must be had. And there's a lot of stuff people got to understand. But first of all is the official, explanation from science, the official thing that they tell us about crystals. And this is basically what they say. Now, it says here, is there any science behind crystal healing? Now, don't shoot the messenger. It says there is no peer-reviewed scientific evidence that crystal healing has any effect. It is considered a pseudoscience. Alleged successes of crystal healing can be attributed to the placebo effect. And the placebo effect is, of course, they had a whole test where, if you don't know already, they give you a pill that does nothing and a pill that does something, and tell you that the pill that does nothing is absolutely great, and you basically heal yourself based upon that knowledge. But really, it's nothing. It's all you. The scientific evidence suggests that no, crystals do not have any mystic powers or attributes that can aid in physical, mental, or spiritual healing or well-being. According to science, crystals do not have any healing or restorative powers over the mind, body, or soul, but belief can certainly be a powerful thing. So now, one of the things you got to think about, and, by the way, we're going to bust all that up that I just read. It's bogus. We're going to bust that up. But one of the things you got to think about, one, is crystals. It's crystals. You got to think about it. If crystals had this power, if they can heal and restore and everything that it's talking about, they would cost a lot more money. A lot of people probably wouldn't even sell them. They probably keep them themselves, or they'd be super expensive if you do sell them. But we don't see this. A lot of you have crystals in your house. A lot of people absolutely have no clue. Now, understand this is by design. When you read articles like that from Google to kind of sort of put people off. It lowers the price of crystals unless you get a huge amethyst or something like that, or something of a more rare quality like a diamond or ruby or what have you. Those ones cost money. But regular crystals, which we'll get into the composition, cheap for the most part. But they understand, and I understand. One, they know you're not going to ever figure out the purpose of crystals and everything that's behind it that we're going to go through in this video. They know you're not going to do that. A lot of people, even if you did research on crystals, there's a lot of books out there, a lot of people talking about it. They know the deeper meaning and what you have to go into to really get people to understand what that's about and why for so long so many civilizations, even still to this day, use them. People swear by them, and they are in so many facets of healing and spiritual practices, throughout the planet. And it's a reason for this, and it's a very real reason that they do work. And if you know how to activate and use them, you can get the benefits of them, which we're going to discuss in this video. But to understand, you're not going to understand that, and it's going to be hard to grasp for a lot of people. So to make sure the price is low, because people are like, oh, they cheap, so they must don't work. And it's put in that whole realm of pseudoscience, as I said, placebo effect, as we read. And people typically discount them as, well, they just pretty rocks. I like them because they're pretty, so I'm going to buy them. But what's the truth? What is this all about? What is the truth about it? This is what we're going to get into. So now, despite what the article is talking about, you got to understand this. Crystals are made of elements, plain and simple, elements. So you have to think about that, elements. Now, this is the part that's going to be tough for people to understand, because a lot of people read stuff and just accept it when it kind of sort of makes sense. But you got to really start thinking about stuff in terms of you, in terms of matter, material, energy, and what have you. So now you have crystals is made of two of the most abundant elements, which is silicon and oxygen. Plain and simple. Now, as I talked about before, understanding one, consciousness creates energy. Energy gives us these atoms. Certain amounts of atoms gives us elements. These elements create the physical, world that we know today, physical universe, including us. So you have silicon and oxygen makes crystals, but silicon and oxygen just so happen to be two of the most essential elements in the creation of us. Plain and simple, the creation of life. So silicon and oxygen as a compound makes up 59% of the Earth's crust. Think about that. This is an abundant element that we're talking about. I mean, it's everywhere. So you got to put that into perspective and understand, one, we're talking about something that is in you. So that's one thing, when they're talking about snow effect and everything like that, you got to think about stuff like that. But that's a compound. That means together. We're talking about, two of the most abundant elements that exist. So now, as I said, you have silicon, oxygen can be found in the body. Now, whenever silicon is dealing with the body, they refer to it as silica, which is basically a silicon dioxide. Now, silica basically deals with the corrective tissue of the skin. It deals with anything. Anytime your skin needs to be repaired or if it's damaged, silica helps with that. It basically helps with any collagen-based part of the skin, hair, toenails, skin, what have you. And collagen basically makes up your corrective tissue, of the skin. So silica deals with this. Now, silica responsible for strong bones and a lot of stuff dealing with your skin. I mean, it's something that's working for you basically every day. Now, it says here, the role of silica in your body. Humans use silica as a food additive and a filter in drugs and vitamins. It has a low bioavailability, meaning your body will only absorb a tiny amount of silica and excrete the rest in urine. Most of the silica in your body is in a form called orthosilicic acid. It exists in your bones, tendons, aorta, liver, and kidneys. You'll find silica in a lot of places: food, rocks, plants, medicine, cosmetics, toothpaste, and those little dry gel packs that are packed in with your product packaging to absorb moisture. We know what those are. There's even silica in your body, as I just said. The most common form of silica is quartz, a component of stone, concrete, and sand. Simply put, silica is everywhere. If you've touched a rock or been to the beach, you've handled silica. Don't worry, it's mostly harmless and can even be beneficial. So now it says, the most common form of silica is quartz, which quartz is a rock, crystal, however you want to say it. But again, remember, silica is in the body. So you got to understand, as I said before, you have consciousness creating energy, energy creating these atoms, atoms giving us elements, different amounts of these atoms will give us different elements. So as I said before, 20 hydrogen atoms will give you calcium. Calcium makes up our bones and teeth. And 14 hydrogen atoms that give you crystals. Now, 14 hydrogen atoms basically bonded under pressure. It's a lot of pressure. Bonded under pressure basically form into these three-dimensional repeating patterns that basically gives crystals its shape. So you have, crystals in the body. And it's something to really think about, crystals in the body. If you ever heard of vertigo, then you understand about crystals being in the body. Now it says here, experts who treat dizziness estimate that about 20% of all dizziness is due to loose crystals or air rocks in the inner ear. The condition known as benign paroxysmal positional vertigo, or BPPV, is usually treated with a series of simple head movements aimed at putting the dislodged ear rocks back where they came from so they can be cleared away by the immune system. BPPV can be triggered by head injury. People get punched in the head to get dizzy. Injury or virus. The condition is more common in older adults. Tiny air rocks keep us balanced. Within the inner ear, there's a little pouch called the utricle that contains about 1,000 little pebbles made of calcium carbonate. The tiny rocks serve an important purpose. They stimulate nerve cells when we move our head and send signals to our brain that guide our sense from up and down. The trouble is that sometimes the little rocks fall off, explains Dr. Timothy Hain, a dizziness expert at Northwestern University. When the rocks fall into one of the inner ear canals, the brain gets confused. As the rocks roll around in the canal, the brain senses that the head is moving a lot more than it actually is. The result, vertigo. Now, it's hard for a lot of people to believe that you can actually have rocks and crystals formulating within your body. We're talking about stones, stuff that you find on Earth and supposedly in outer space. You have to make that connection. It's essential to understanding this whole point about crystals. Think about that. Stones being produced within the body. And it's not just vertigo. You have salivary gland stones. Now, salivary gland stones is basically when chemicals in your saliva basically seep. Too many of these chemicals seep into glands into your mouth and they overwhelm that gland and these stones are produced. It's a horrible sight. You don't want to look it up. But you get these stones, being produced within the mouth. You also have, of course, kidney stones. And kidney stones, a lot of people always ask that question, is a real stone. We're talking about real stones being produced. And these stones is made of freaking calcium, calcium oxalate, phosphate, uric acid, and other elements that's produced in your body. Now, a lot of people seen these kidney stones when they pop them out. I mean, it'd be these rocks, and it's real rocks. It's crazy. They don't really know the cause of kidney stones, but they think it's due to having a diet of too many, they say rock producing foods, beets, nuts, spinach, rhubarb, tea, stuff like that, believe it or not. But you have these things that can produce rocks within the body. Another one is gout. It says here, I'm going to just read right here. It says, gout arthritis is caused by the deposition of crystals of uric acid in the joint. You look down here at the picture, you see these little crystals. And I'm just talking about uric acid being one of the components, the elements basically found in these kidney stones. So it's a lot of things that we can see where you have the production of rocks, crystals, formulating within the human body itself. So now, as I said, you have quartz. Quartz being one of the most common forms of silica, crystalline silica to be exact. Now, you have silicon and oxygen, which is a great conductor of electricity. Quartz is one of the best conductors of electricity, which is why you find quartz in, microchips. You find them in many microchips. You find them in any kind of phone, computers, TVs, any kind of smartphone, any kind of major electronic devices. You're going to find quartz. It's just that simple. And the reason why quartz is used because not only is a great conductor of electricity, it has a property basically called piezoelectricity. Now, piezoelectricity is a property that basically is when you have the pressure, mechanical pressure that converts into electricity. So the mechanical part being basically the pressure of, a liquid, a gas, or a fluid that's being converted into electricity. Now it says here, when a quartz crystal is cut or struck together, The pressure applied to it generates an electrical charge. When an electrical charge is applied to the quartz, the crystal distorts, and as the voltage is removed, the crystal creates an electrical field. It vibrates sometimes 30,000 times per second. Considering our bodies are constantly producing electrical signals, the interaction between us and crystals is pretty clear. And we're going to come back to this because what I just read is really important. Now, I'm going to be basically going through a few articles on a few sources so you can see and understand. One, because we got to refute the first thing I read about, crystals having absolutely no effect on people, so on and so forth. You have to really, when you go into it, it doesn't make any sense when we're talking about, as I said, the body producing these crystals, and there has to be this connection where you understand. But it's more to it as we're going to get into. But it doesn't fit, that you have these crystals everywhere. They are all over the world. They are abundant. They make up a large part of the earth itself, and we produce them. Think about that. So you got to look at that fact. You got to look at the fact that, one, we take for granted a lot of stuff. And that's one of the things I said. You really have to stop taking for granted a lot of stuff that's given to us. I look at cell phones still to this day, and they blow my mind. I mean, they just blow my mind, like what they can do. This little thing can do so much, yet it could not work without these quartz crystals, without these crystals and little rocks that you don't even know the name of. But it's a lot of components in there that we take for granted that is essential to our phones and TVs and everything working. We understand about memory cards can store a shitload of memory on a memory card, and it's like, how? I mean, it's data, large amounts of data. It's because of crystals. Now it says here, and I'm going to read a lot of articles because you got to, as I said, you got to really have a comparison to what I just read, because the first thing people are going to say when you pull up the article, or when you, make any kind of reference to crystals working, they're going to pull up the article because it's been there. And I had people do this, and I'm had to go through a lengthy conversation and break it down to them why that don't make sense. You understand what I'm doing right here? But I want to give you guys and read to you guys a lot of different things so you can know where to draw from besides this video to basically get information when you're talking about crystals and how they work. A lot of people just not going to have this information or even know where to go to look. But it's a lot of things you got to think about as towards the power of crystals, as we're talking about, as we can see with our phones and TVs and everything else. Now, if we are energetic beings, you got to make that connection, which I'm going to make at the end. But it says here, Superman crystals could store 360 terabytes of data forever. Now, we'll get into this in a second. Now, researchers have been able to demonstrate the ability to read and write data using a 5-dimensional recording process in a synthetic crystal to store massive amounts of data indefinitely. The researchers, led by Jingyu Zhang from the University of Southampton in the UK, successfully recorded a 300 kilobyte data copy of a text file onto nanostructured glass in 5D using ultra-fast and intense pulse laser. The file was written in 3 layers of nanostructured dots separated by 5 micrometers, which is crazy micrometers, which is 5 millionths of a meter. The scientists use a femtosecond laser, which emits pulses of light in femtoseconds. That's 1 quadrillionth or 1 millionth of a billionth of a second. It's crazy. The 5D read-write laser can record up to an estimate of 360 terabyte data disk capacity on nanostructured glass, capable of thermal stability up to 1000 degrees Celsius and a practically unlimited lifetime. So now it's a big deal of understanding how we can store massive amounts of information in crystals. We know they model computers off the human brain, but understanding how you can store this data in crystals is something that they understood by understanding DNA. We have DNA crystals. We understand DNA contains so much information that make up us. Plain and simple, massive amounts of information. Crystal form. Crystals, DNA crystals is a big thing that they have, so many different fields dedicated to this fact. So it says here, scientists achieved the first stable, and I don't like this, simulations of DNA crystals, which is crazy. I'm just going to read this part here. It says, Since the birth of structural biology, X-ray crystallography has been the most widely used technique to determine the three-dimensional structure of biomolecules, the chemical compounds found in living organisms. In this regard, knowledge of the interactions between the biomolecules with their crystal environment and the molecular forces that stabilize the crystals would serve to optimize this technique. Now, understand if they are simulating or creating some kind of synthetic crystalline DNA, crystal DNA. I mean, they are basically fabricating the structure for the creation of the human body. It's cloning, basically. It's amazing. But if you're doing that, we're talking about not just cloning, but creating somebody with that DNA pattern, with that information. Basically, since, your DNA is containing all information from your past and from just the makeup of life, which is another thing that, not to jump off track, but you got to think about that. How the hell, and this is how you got to really look at stuff sometimes. One, we're passing down information. The fact that your child learns how to walk, that's DNA information passed down. The fact that your child knows how to talk later on, and everything that it learns how to do is passed down through DNA. It's programming passed down. The crazy part about the past life being wiped, what is that? What is that process? That everything is wiped except for the basic components for the operating system. So you got to look at it in terms of a computer system. If you go ahead and factory reset your computer, everything is going to be gone unless you click that option to keep everything. But everything is going to be gone. What's going to be left is the OS and the stuff that came with the OS to run a computer. But all that data and pictures and all that stuff, gone, plain and simple. So you got to think about that with DNA and passing down that information. And we pass it down. It's just the basic building blocks for us, and we keep the stuff about walking and talking and everything like that. The knowledge we don't, and that shows you that there's this connection, a separate connection from just DNA and and consciousness. It's different. Consciousness is it's what you take with you. This DNA and walking and talking and mechanics of the body, it's a different program. And this whole crystalline and understand this whole crystalline structure of the DNA and how information is passed down kind of shows you that if you understand what I'm saying. But the fact that they can simulate that is deep. It's crazy that they can basically go ahead and take the information needed to go ahead and build the body. And with that, it's still traits. It's still in there, still locked in there. So you can sing because your mama sang, or you can draw because your daddy drew, or you can play ball because your dad did. And those little traits is still within there as well. You don't lose everything. It's some little pieces that you keep. Features. You look like your mama. Got the same kind of nose, stuff like that. Those type of features, traits, all that stuff is still within there. You get a little teeny, it's filtered down, it's a little teeny bit when you had that child and they come back and they have these features. All that stored within the DNA. It's crystalline, it's crystals. The crystalline DNA, same structure, the same thing we're talking about, holding massive amounts of data within crystals, within you. Make that connection. Because we got to understand, the body holds that memory. It holds it. So the growth of muscles, tendons and so on and so forth, how something is going to grow, where it's going to grow out to. I mean, we don't even think about the measurements itself. That's the whole makeup of the body. You're going to grow this tall, this length, so on and so forth. This is all information. It's all stuff. It's like a computer program. It's like codes. All that stuff is information. It's all within you. It's within your skin, your genes, your DNA. It's all there. It's time sensitive like a mug. During this time, or when the body receives a certain amount of this activates. It's like programs, so on and so forth. Massive amounts of information in the body. It's the same when we think about crystals. It's really no different. And we got to look at it like that. So when we're talking about, being able to program minds and bodies and so on and so forth, and being able to induce certain chemicals to make stuff stop hurting, to numb stuff that we see doctors do all the time. It's a lot of stuff that can be done to show you how the body is similar to computers and how we have this information field within our body, this information DNA within us that can be tampered with and changed, and them making some kind of synthetic form of the crystalline structure of a DNA, which if you ever seen it before, it looks like a kaleidoscope. It's actually beautiful, and it's something amazing. But we got to look at that and think about that in the same type of context as crystals, our body, and the connection that we should have. Forget what the article was talking about. This is a connection that should exist, since we talk about stuff that exists within us. So the Earth's crust that we walk on is basically made up of crystals and rocks with electrical producing properties. So if you ever heard of people say you have to ground this wire, people doing work on a house, doing construction, they're talking about, you have to ground the wire. Now, if you go into a house and you see a lot of the sockets look like this, then that means that house probably has fuse boxes instead of a circuit breaker. So when you see that little hole at the bottom that looks like this here, that hole means there's a grounded wire. It's for grounded wires. That's giving the circuit something to pass through, which is basically the ground. So you probably seen the model before. It's like you're working on a house, and let's say the wire that's here somehow comes detached and it's touching the metal part of this socket here. If somebody comes along and begins to do work on this socket and they touch it, they're going to get electrocuted if there is no ground wire. You know what I'm saying? You understand? So there's no way for the signal to be relayed to the circuit breaker or the fuse box to cut off so the person doesn't get electrocuted. Circuit breaker only, because the fuse box, mostly they don't do that. They have to take fuses. So basically, if somebody comes now with the wire being exposed and touching the metal base of this, they come and touch it, they're going to get electrocuted. So by having a ground wire, what happens is once the circuit is not complete, or if you go and you plug in like an old broke TV or any type of electrical equipment that don't work, you plug it in, it's going to blow the circuit breaker, because the signal is going to be sent to the box to shut the box off. Now, if that signal is no ground wire there, no signal will be sent. So the live wire that's exposed, basically, if anybody touch it, they're going to get electrocuted. And this is how you have fires happen, inside the walls and stuff like that, because there's nothing there to cut the circuit, to cut the flow of electricity flowing through. Like if you plug something in that's bad into the wall, or while something is plugged in, it shorts out, and then now you have this continuous circuit, keep going, not shutting off the breaker. It's keep flowing through the walls, and eventually something's going to catch on fire. You're going to have electrical fire within the walls, house will burn down. By having it grounded, the signal is basically sent back to the box to shut off and cut off all power. And when that happens, you go to the breaker. If the breaker don't work, it's something within the walls, and you can fix that. So it's important to have that ground wire. So they got to think about it. The earth is made and ready for energy to flow through it. Think about that. We all walking on this earth. You have energy flowing through it. It's made for energy to flow through it. And if you think, if we had control over our energy and how everything is connected to the earth in some way, shape, or form, and we're walking, we're touching the ground, there is this connection. It's one of the reasons why a lot of these hippies, a lot of these earthers talk about, walking around with your shoes off in the grass and everything like that, being connected to the earth. It's a lot of stuff that sounds real crazy and spooky when you talk about crystals having powers and so on and so forth. People talking about barefoot in the grass. A lot of people won't get it. They won't understand it and make that connection, because it requires a lot of information. But it's truth to it. But if you think about, if you can control that energy, how we could communicate differently with each other, with animals, with trees, with so on and so forth, by having this energy connection with the earth itself, and understanding as well, you have energy just out there. When we talk about Tesla and wireless energy and everything like that, it's out there. The earth, the atmosphere, everything, this whole system we live in is set and ready for our energy to be connected to it. So when we're talking about this connection that we're supposed to have, we've lost that connection. It's basically gone. It's a connection that we once had. It's the connection that the ancient Egyptians was talking about getting back. And just thinking about being locked in and tapped in to being connected to everything, to all of a sudden, you're out. And you're like, woo, trying to figure out what the hell happened and get this connection back and understand, how you was tapped into this energy flow that seems to be put here and what's, available to us, but we lost the knowledge of how to really tap into it. Now, I talked about this before about how the pineal gland as well has crystals. And it says here, the pineal gland, crystal transducer with scientific basis. It is located in the hidden center of the brain. It is pine cone shaped and no bigger than a raisin. Incredibly, it is actually bioluminescent, meaning it glows. So glows within the darkness of the brain as if lit by a tiny light bulb, and has also been found to be sensitive to light. Interestingly enough, the anatomy of the pineal gland actually consists of a lens, cornea, and retina. I talked about this before, just like our eyeballs. Also, according to scientist Dr. Graham Blackwell, a large number of small crystals have been found in the gland called calcite microcrystals. They bear a striking resemblance to the calcite crystals in the inner air that we was talking about before. Makes sense. That have been shown to exhibit the qualities of an electric field known as piezoelectricity, which we talked about. If the pineal gland crystals exhibit the same qualities, then this would provide a means whereby an external electromagnetic field might directly influence the brain. Since we have one that influences the heart, it would make sense. It says here, at close magnification, the calcite microcrystals are visible on the actual gland. Therefore, it is probably not surprising why over centuries of human history, esoteric groups consider the pineal gland, or all-seeing eye, to be our built-in wireless transmitter, enabling us to connect to higher frequencies in spiritual worlds. You can see representations of this pine cone-shaped gland in the form of a pine cone across Europe and Egypt. The Vatican built the court of the pine cone, which is adorned with a large pine cone in front of its entrance. It is also found on the staff of the Pope and the Egyptian god Osiris, where the Pope, of course, got it from. Crystals everywhere. I remember you had the whole story about the little girl that cried crystals. This is something that we see. It's something that when people talk about this connection, and the reason why I have to give it to you like this is, as I said before, you got to have the facts. You got to be able to really talk about and show people this connection with crystals, because a lot of people are just not going to understand it. A lot of people look at it as a fad, but it's more to it that people need to understand, instead of just walking up to people all crazy and saying, these crystals are going to give me powers. Now, a lot of people don't understand about every single mineral is found within our body. Plain and simple. A lot of people don't think about stuff and look at charts. The stuff that makes up everything that we see is found within our body. Plain and simple. And you got to think about that. I mean, we're talking about atoms, which everything is made of atoms. And the elements that make up everything that we see is made up of different amounts of atoms. So it don't matter what it is. It's made up of different amounts of atoms, which everything at its basis is made up of atoms. So it's just because this, microphone or this camera or what have you, whatever it may be, has different amounts of hydrogen atoms put together in different ways and forms to make, give it its makeup, it's still at its core made up of, atoms, which we all have. So, I mean, even trees, you got the basic, 6 elements for trees can be found in us. You have carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, sulfur, phosphorus, make up trees. All this stuff can be found. We can find all this stuff within us. All this stuff exists. It's out there. And a lot of people are just not going to make that connection or look at the world and see how all this stuff is basically the same. All this stuff comes from elements. We are the energy that make up these elements. We are producing what we see. This stuff comes from us. It's within us. So they got to think about, anything that is not found, on this planet, we would consider alien. It's not from here. We can't find its chemical makeup within, what we know to exist as far as elements. So therefore it's alien. So anything that will come here that we will find that's not been categorized or put on the periodic tables, that's how they will look at it. But for the most part, we can look at every single thing and see not only is it within us, but it's out there. And we know we can find it. We know what it is. So you have scientists basically find it's a meteor with crystals in it that basically contain the entire makeup of us, within the crystal. Now it says, a step closer to finding aliens, building blocks of life are found in 2 4.5 billion year old meteorites that fell to Earth 2 decades ago. Crystals found in 2 meteorites contain the essential molecules of life, amino acids, hydrocarbons, and liquid water found on 4.5 billion year old rocks. The meteors landed on Earth in 1998, but the technology of the time wasn't capable of detecting the important chemicals. It says the small halide crystals, salt containing, were found to contain the amino acids, liquid water, and hydrocarbons. Amino acids form the basis of proteins, and hydrocarbons are organic compounds made up of hydrogens and carbon, all of these being essential elements to create human life. So if you have, when you think about it, out there in space floating, the elements that make up not just us, but the planet, that should tell you what? It could possibly be life out there. Only thing that's missing is the energy and the knowledge to put together these elements into the amounts needed to create the makeup of anything that we see here. It's just that simple. See, it's hard for people to grasp because a lot of people are still thinking about in terms of, stuff just happening. Like, the reason why we got to look at us is because we are seriously complex. I mean, it just don't get no more complex. You can look at a lot of stuff you can look at and say, okay, well, I can see how that could have happened and came together to form certain things. The only thing I say that about is rocks. Plain and simple. It's rocks. That's the only thing to me that possibly can't be a coincidence. That can be a coincidence. It's rocks, because it is what it is. But when you think about trees, when you think about, humans and animals, I mean, we talk about complexity. There is intelligence in that design. Something had to have a knowledge to understand, to put this stuff together and to have it function and work the way that it's working. When you understand this stuff, there's a creator. And that's how you got to look at it. I mean, the human body, the woman's body, it had to be coded with the information to recreate itself. That's just sophistication. That is knowledge. That is something that's just can't be an accident. It's too complex. It's too complex. So, and when you think along those type of lines and you think about the complexity of us and how you got to have this amount of hydrogen atoms plus this amount to create this, and then these two elements can't mix because it's going to have this type of reaction. No way in the world a coincidence can do all of that complexity to give us what we see today and hold the power of the human spirit, the energy, the soul. It's just not right, which animates it. So, as I said, I could put all this stuff together. We can go out and do what they're basically doing with the DNA crystals. But what is going to animate the body? We can clone and make this and that. What is going to animate it? What is going to give it that spark, that life? Where are we going to get that from? Energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transferred from one form to another. So we got to think about that. That is just giving you a big key into what we must be and what they know about us. So we got to look at Africa. Makes sense in a lot of ways of it being so rich and the minerals and everything that we see that make up, things that we need for computer components, so on and so forth. A lot of those minerals and crystals can be found in Africa, which is why they go there, they're mining there. And it's almost as if, if it was the cradle of civilization of life started there. I mean, it kind of sort of makes sense when you have that abundance of elements needed for humans. So, to answer the question, because we basically started out talking about, what is the truth? What's the facts about all this? The thing is this. You got to look at crystals. And I kind of gave you the hint back there when I talked about the pressure of these crystals. The pressure giving you this magnetic electricity. The pressure creating this electricity. And we're talking about movement. We're talking about stuff happening with the crystals to give it this energetic property to make this stuff happen. Now, they put crystals in phones and TVs and so on and so forth. It's not just that it's just sitting there working. Electricity is introduced, when you plug it in a wall, so on and so forth. And with cell phones, you can circulate that energy for a certain amount of time. Your battery dies out, you got to recharge. But in every case, it's just like the body. If I build a body, where's electricity going to come from to animate it? Where's the energy going to come from to animate it? I can build a phone. It's not going to work if I don't plug it in and turn it on and give it that juice. So in these cases, we're talking about action, something happening. Here's the key, plain and simple. The reason why your crystals are not working, the reason why your stones are just sitting around looking stupid, looking pretty, I should say, it's because they're not doing anything. It takes action, motion to get it to work. And you see a lot of the monks, a lot of the yogis, they'll walk around with little bags of crystals, rocks, like you got when you got this video. Here they are right here. And this is the key right here. This is the thing. Energy. You have to understand that, what's happening when you have these stones. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to include them so you can understand. First of all, one, and some of you felt this soon as you take them out and you have them in your hand, you can feel that. You feel it right here. Am I correct? You feel it here. You feel the energy. That's your heart energy. You feel it circulating through these stones. You're dead if you don't. When you rub them close, you feel that. You feel that when you shake them. You feel it. It's a funny type feeling, but it's the energy. Now, if I'm shaking my hand like this constantly, you can't see it. You can't see the electricity, but am I producing energy? Yes, I am. You can feel the wind. I'm creating sound. There's motion. That's energy. And I told you guys, don't get confused and mixed up when we're talking about energy as far as, how it relates to the human body. Because when you're moving, there's energy. You just can't see it. Energy is being produced. You are energy. So energy is happening. You're creating energy when you do stuff. Now, creating energy, not per se, but using your energy, showing what you are when you make movements. So it's the thing. That's the trick with these. You have to put energy into them in order for it to work. These properties are not going to work. You are human. You flesh. It takes energy to activate them. So you hear people say stuff like, put them in the sun. Also a good idea. Stuff was made to charge, to heal. Have a nice amethyst here. You can look on the back clearly. That's earth back there. That's earth. Let me turn the light down. That's rock. It don't get no more ground than that. A lot of you have these in your homes where you can see, what that is and how that works. So, amethyst. Good form. This is good to have next to your TVs to basically absorb that negative radiation, that negative energy that's fucking with your brain. This just absorb all that. It's automatically activated as soon as you set it next to your TV. Plain and simple. Put it out in the sun, let it absorb that, recharge. This will help you out. I keep this right next to my TV. It's good to have. This is another good crystal right here. And my Superman crystal, I call it. I use this one a lot to, if I could demonstrate, if I take one of these crystals and you can kind of sort of strike it like a match here. The camera won't pick up on it because I tried to do it so I could show you guys. But it basically looks like this.
This is a piece of quartz crystal that we're going to try to demonstrate the triboluminescence effect. We're going to be scraping this quartz crystal with another small stone, and we'll be doing it like so. And we're going to see if we can get the flashes of light that are characteristic of triboluminescence with this quartz crystal. So let's dim the light. And see if we can get some. There we go. As you can see, we have actually produced light by scraping this quartz crystal with another piece of quartz stone.
Now, I was basically to take this and something like this ambulance here and sparkles together, you'll see that effect. And I try to show you guys on camera, but it wouldn't pick up that light. But you can do this experiment at home. You can do it at home if you have a good quartz and you have one of the stones that you got. If you bought the packets with the stones, strike it on it like a match. You will get that light every time. In fact, it'll smell like electrical something burning. But you got to look at it again. These crystals, these rocks having these electric conducting properties make sense to why the Egyptians used sandstone and a lot of the stones that they used to build a lot of the temples, because they have these properties, these energy conducting properties. So it makes sense why they use these stones to build it. We carry around these stones and crystals today. So did the ancient Egyptians. It says here, one of the biggest historical proponents of healing crystals, the Egyptians buried their dead with quartz upon their forehead. This was believed to help guide the departed safely into the afterlife. Pharaohs toted cylinders filled with quartz to balance the Ba and Ka energies of the body. Strongly associated with the sky goddess Isis, crushed lapis lazuli stones were most notably worn by ladies of royalty, like Cleopatra, upon the eye to promote enlightenment and awareness. Dancers donned rubies in their navels to foster their sex appeal. Many wore crystals over the heart to attract love, and placed crystal-laden crowns upon their head to stimulate enlightenment and awaken the third eye. They carried them around. You'll see a lot of monks. You'll see a lot of chants and a lot of rituals begin with the shaking of these crystals and stones to spark up that energy. Plain and simple, there's something that's right there that exists. You didn't create the energy, it's already there. You're just able to see it with that clash of the stones or what have you. But it's already there. It's showing you that the energy is there and it exists. And by creating that friction is how you can actually see it. But the proper use of these stones is just that. Smart people, they walk around with them in their pockets. A lot of people who wear them for earrings is good. The one hitting them, any type of movement, any type of clashing, like me, I walk around the house and I'm thinking, I'll just have the rocks in my hands and I rub them together, I shake them up, stuff like that. I keep them in front of my computer desk and I'm always touching them, always messing around. You have Philip Plein. Now, Philip Plein is a guy who I like. I have some of his stuff. And he has these shirts that kind of sort of look like this. In fact, it looks like this. It basically has crystals in them. A lot of people know who he is. And he gets the idea. In one of the articles I was reading, that he was talking about the power of crystals and understanding that it's a part of you. And he got the whole concept of crystals being in us and us having this connection with crystals and this energy circulation. And that's just basically, understanding the use of crystals, physically, how you can, by shaking them, how, clashing them together like it shows in the video, how you can see this energy. But to use them the proper way, again, meditation, sleep. It's just that simple. You're not going to walk around constantly shaking crystals all day long. You're exerting energy while trying to, absorb energy. It's going to be tough to do. Sleep. There it is, meditation. Now, you in your energetic form can relate and bond with these crystals, with this energy on that level. Plain and simple. So if you sleep in and you have these crystals on your body or near your body, then you can begin to reap the benefits of these crystals. And that's their proper use for it. You not having no knowledge of that, nothing's going to happen. A lot of people have crystals in their room. A lot of people sleep with a crystal under their bed or under their pillow, so on and so forth. Stuff like this is good. This is like the proper use a lot of times for crystals. I don't want to go too much into what specific crystals are used for what specific thing because it's going to take all day. I gave you really the crystals that you need, the rocks that you should have. And of course, you're going to have, quartz in the house, amethyst, of course, stuff like that, rose quartz, a lot of different stones that's out there that's beautiful, that has, different properties. And for the most part, you have people who understand the properties, but not how to really use it or how to apply it to you. This is something that we're talking about on an energetic level that can only be, accessed energetically. And you can't do that in your physical form unless you apply motion, striking, some type of energy exerted with the crystal or rock to, release that form of energy. And a lot of cases you can feel it, some you can't. But I guarantee you, when you're shaking those crystals in your hand, when you walk around, you can shake them in a little velvet bag it came in, it's energy. You're getting that. Plain and simple. When you sleep as well, you got electronics in the house. Keep them around. I'm not going to tell people, and I definitely hate to see a lot of people say that, they don't work, they don't do nothing, there's no purpose for them, because they, don't have the knowledge to understand what that is. And one of the reasons for this video is to get people into that proper understanding. And it's something that you got to be one of us and have that esoteric knowledge and understanding of how energy works and how stuff work, to even be, interested in them, or to have some kind of understanding in the proper application or proper use of crystals, the proper use of crystals, instead of just having them to sit around and look pretty and just collect too many of them for no reason at all. Putting them into their proper use, adding energy to them to extract the energy out is how you should be using them. So again, to kill that article, finally, it says here, what we know about healing crystals. Concepts of electromagnetism as proven by James Clerk Maxwell and their interdependent nature, along with the various breakthroughs in quantum theory, have given us scientific evidence for what the ancients always knew. Because everything vibrates at certain frequencies, they have the ability to shift and alter the frequencies of other objects or bodies when they occupy the same space. Hence, you want to be near these crystals, as I said, when they vibrate, and shake them up. Hence, a crystal which vibrates at its own frequency, oscillations, vibrates within our own energy field through the physical law of resonance and creates a larger vibrational field affecting the nervous system and transmitting the information to the brain. In essence, these connecting vibrations can harmonize frequencies and stimulate biochemical shifts that affect physical health in a positive, healing way. So an article is talking about the placebo effect, which is basically you using your own energy to make something work based upon what you believe. So I can just amp up this pill and say this pill is going to heal your headache. It's the best pill on the market. It works for everybody 100% of the time. And you take the pill and then your headache goes away. But really the pill is nothing. That's you, the placebo effect. You thinking something or expecting something to work. And because you expect it, it works. But really it's you, it's your own energy. And a lot of people attribute that same thing to crystals. So when you go into the different types of crystals, they're supposed to, do this and that and heal this and that. A lot of people want to attribute that to the placebo effect and say, it's you having the knowledge, you believing that this crystal is supposed to heal this crystal is supposed to activate that. You having this understanding and that knowledge, it's you that's making it happen. And after all, this stuff is all in you anyway. And what these crystals are supposed to do for you, you should be able to do for yourself. And that's basically what it boils down to. I'm not saying nobody should get them. Of course, I have them. It's something that can definitely aid you and your spirituality and your growth as a spiritual person. Definitely helps with that. When you have these crystals around and you have this understanding of what these crystals are supposed to do, and you're actively meditating and manifesting what you want using crystals, it's going to work for you. It's going to happen for you. And if you don't have that understanding of all the connections that go with it, which we just talked about, and how this stuff is not spooky, it's far from it, and how we're talking about something that's basically within you and how you should be able to connect with it, it all makes sense. So using that same aspect and talk about that same thing, you have to put that in the same context as a lot of other stuff that, people say you shouldn't touch, that is part of your makeup, which we'll get into. But with crystals, it's just plain to see, the science, as the article said, is not there. Clearly, we showed you, and definitely the video shows you, there's science there. Now, as it pertains to us, if we're energy and it's energy, there it is. Plain and simple. So that same effect is, of course, it's going to have some kind of interaction with the human body and the human energy. And you're producing energy with these crystals, and we are, in fact, have that same makeup. There should be a connection. Now, the issue is how to connect. How to connect, when to connect, what is the connection going to produce for you, and that's based upon what your consciousness puts out and perceives for each individual crystal to do for you. So if you think this crystal is going to heal you, it'll heal you. You think this crystal is going to make you smarter, so on and so forth. But definitely not something we should shun away from. As I said, you go back and look in ancient Egyptian times and a lot of the antiquities, still to this day, civilizations, they have crystals, they use crystals, and they get out of it what they get out of it. The knowledge must be understood by people who have conscious minds and rational thinking and understanding, to put stuff like this out of the realm of spookism and put it into the right context of something that's possible and something that we can basically put our trust into and use, on a regular basis. I use them every day. I work with them every day, and meditation, and use them in a lot of different forms. And we'll be getting more into this type stuff as we go along. But I want to thank you guys for taking the time to watch and purchase and support. Thanks to everybody that's watching on Merkabah Academy who took the time to become a member. A lot more are going to be coming like this, and it's just a lot more going to be coming to this site. I've been working hard to put all this together, and as I said, it's part of a larger, platform that's going to be releasing. I've been working on for years, so this is part of it. It's a major part of it. We're going to really start here and turn this over to something major, something big that we're going to be able to use, that everybody's going to be able to use and benefit from down the line. But I'll try, and I'm going to keep trying to get videos out to make things more easier to understand when it pertains to things like crystals and religion and so on and so forth. It's knowledge, it's information. A lot of people are lost because they just don't know. People don't know where to begin to look. People, they'll get books and everything, and they don't know how to actually go about doing the research or how to make it make sense. So it's something I'm actually good at that, I try to put out to get people to understand, how stuff is and how stuff works. So thank you guys for taking the time to purchase and support and watch. And I'll see you guys next video. Thanks to all the members, as I said before. And again, with the DVDs, please take advantage. Try to get the DVDs, as I said, if you can get them all. I have told a lot of people they're going to be gone, which they will be. I told a lot of people to basically take a look at the payment plan if you can't afford to buy it all at once. But they're available right now. They won't be for too much longer. They will definitely go out of sale because it's just not a lot of people buying DVDs, and it actually costs me money to keep them on file for Trepstar, the company that produces the DVDs and makes them and sends them out to you guys. They charge you for stuff like that. I don't have time to print and ship DVDs, so and this other companies are basically shying away from DVDs, and it's not worth it with Blu-rays to do that. It's going to cost too much, to you guys, so it's not worth it. But it's just not worth it. A lot of people buying more of the digital downloads and the flash drive, so we're going to stick with that route. And DVD players are going to go the way of VCRs and VHS, what have you. Tapes, they're going to be done with. A lot of people are going to stick with digital, and there's a lot more coming out that's digital. I don't mind them personally, DVDs and stuff like that, especially Blu-rays. But I can understand why people don't grab a lot of the DVDs. But it's good to have, the hard copies as well, because, you have them, you never know. But thank you guys for watching. See you next video.